Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we aren't just looking at history, we are literally stepping into the shadows of human nature. We're going on an investigative journey into some of the absolute darkest, most shocking revenge stories ever recorded. You know, I am endlessly fascinated by how ordinary people, when pushed past their breaking points, transform into these meticulous architects of destruction. So we're going to treat each of these historical accounts like a mystery unfolding in real time. We'll analyze the betrayal, the obsession, and the execution of ultimate vengeance. Let's just dive right into this dark dossier. Right off the bat, the ancient Han Dynasty Book of Rights declares this totally chilling mandate: one should not live under the same heaven with one's father's murderer. Vengeance, in this historical context, isn't a choice, it's an absolute moral imperative. We're looking at the psychology of the inciting incident here. That precise moment of profound betrayal, humiliation, or cruelty fundamentally shatters a victim's mind. In that single devastating second, the person they were dies, and the avenger is born. So as we open this up, I want you to keep this question at the very front of your mind. Where exactly is the line drawn between ultimate justice and complete destruction? Is it actually possible to balance the scales without burning down the entire world around you? Let's explore our first archetype and find out. Section 1, the psychology of revenge. Let's get right into it. See, vengeance here isn't some chaotic, immediate reaction. It's almost like a disease that ferments in the dark. There's this incubation period where victims process their trauma and just meticulously plot their retaliation. This brings us to the absolutely chilling case of Pierre Picard. Back in 1807, Picard was a simple, happy shoemaker in Nimes, France. He was engaged to marry a beautiful, wealthy woman. Life was good, but three of his jealous friends, Lupion, Chaubard, and Solari, falsely accused him of being an English spy. Imagine the sheer terror of that. On his actual wedding day, he was arrested in secret. This profound betrayal triggered a terrifying psychological snap. The happy shoemaker basically vanished, replaced by an architect of ruin. Picot's patience is genuinely a masterclass in obsession. Think about this. For 2 whole years in the freezing Fenestrol fortress, he didn't even know why he was there. In his 8th year, a dying Italian priest bequeathed him a hidden treasure. When he was finally released in 1814 after the fall of the empire, Picot didn't just take his money and move on. No way. Armed with immense wealth, he spent 10 years hunting his betrayers from the shadows. He stuck a dagger into Chaubard's heart, he poisoned Solari, he framed Lupion's son, burned Lupion's restaurant to the ground, and finally stabbed him to death. His shadowy, methodical assassinations were so compelling, they actually directly inspired Alexandre Dumas' literary masterpiece, The Count of Monte Cristo. Section 2, Generational Blood and Family Feuds. Let's look at how this evolves. This is what happens when the original crime becomes lost to time, and revenge infects entire families like a virus, passed down until the bloodline itself is soaked in violence. Consider the staggering contrast in the legendary Hatfield and McCoy feud in Appalachia. The famous catalyst? A seemingly trivial dispute in 1878 over a wandering hog, which was tried by a rigged jury of Hatfields. The consequence, though? A horrifying New Year's Day ambush a decade later that left Randolph McCoy's cabin in ashes and 8 of his children dead. But here's the historical twist. The true underlying catalyst wasn't actually the hog. It was lingering tension from the end of the Civil War in 1865, when a Confederate sympathizer named Jim Vance killed Union soldier Asa Harmon McCoy. The hog was merely a spark hitting a 20-year-old powder keg. And we see this exact same viral revenge centuries earlier. Over in 10th century Iceland, as detailed in the epic Njál saga, minor, honestly seemingly pathetic slights over manhood and property spiraled into a devastating 50-year blood feud. There was this dark, fatalistic undercurrent in their society that drove families to relentlessly slaughter one another over perceived insults. The arithmetic of a blood feud is terrifying when you look at how it escalates. An insult over stolen property inevitably leads to a violent ambush on an ice bridge, with skulls split open in the freezing cold. The violence multiplies until 100 men surround the home of the sage Njál. They even attempted to stop the violence at the legal assembly with massive financial settlements. But the negotiations totally failed over, get this, the perceived insult of a unisex silk cloak. The result, 11 people, including Njál himself, were burned alive in their home. And the lone survivor who escaped through the smoke, he pursued the killers all the way to Orkney in Wales. The cycle simply refuses to break. Moving on to Section 3, the fatal demands of honor. What happens when revenge isn't driven by chaotic, blinding rage, but by an unwavering, institutionalized expectation? Well, in 1701, the legendary Akko incident of Japan began when Lord Asano was compelled to commit ritual suicide, or seppuku, for assaulting a court official named Kira Yoshinaka within Edo Castle. Overnight, his samurai retainers became masterless ronin. But they didn't strike immediately. They weaponized patience. For 14 long months, they scattered. They pretended to be disgraced drunkards, enduring deep public humiliation just to lower Kira's guard. Then, on a snowy night in January 1703, they finally struck. The execution of this revenge was incredibly solemn, clinical, and steeped in ritual. They stormed the compound in the dead of night, carefully ensuring no neighboring homes were harmed. They pinned the trembling Kira to the ground and respectfully offered him the chance to commit seppuku. When his cowardice prevented him from doing it, they beheaded him with the exact same dagger their master had used. They washed the head in a temple well, presented it at Lord Asano's tomb, and then, fully aware of the law, they immediately surrendered. It's a stunning paradox, really. Fulfilling their ultimate moral duty absolutely guaranteed their own destruction. Honor compels action on vastly different scales. It drove Queen Boudica in 60 CE to raise an entire army and incinerate Roman cities after being publicly flogged and witnessing the assault of her daughters. That's a macro-scale defense of her tribe. Yet honor also drives intimate, highly targeted vigilantism. Take the Eastern Han Dynasty's 7 sisters, who ambushed a magistrate's carriage on a bridge, drowning him in the Wei River to avenge their wrongfully executed father. Whether it's toppling an empire or executing a single corrupt official, the demands of honor leave absolutely no room for forgiveness. Section 4, Hell Hath No Fury. You might want to brace yourselves for this one. We are entering the realm of unparalleled psychological terror and the complete systematic erasure of an enemy. The terrifying, methodical escalation of Olga of Kiev in the 10th century is a true study in ruthlessness. After the Drevlian tribe assassinated her husband, Prince Igor, they had the fatal audacity to send messengers suggesting she marry his murderer. Are you kidding me? Olga treated her revenge like a serial killer's murder board. First, she tricked the messengers into a trench and buried them alive, literally staring down at them to ask if they found the honor to their taste. Then she requested their elite diplomats, locked them in a bathhouse, and burned them alive. Finally, she invited the remaining Drevlians to a funeral feast for her husband, got them blackout drunk, and had her retinue slaughter 5,000 of them in a single night. But the craziest part? She wasn't done. Olga laid siege to the Drevlian city of Iskursten for a year. Feigning mercy, she offered to lift the siege for a bizarrely small tribute, 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows from each house. When the relieved citizens complied, she had her soldiers attach burning sulfur to the birds' legs and release them at nightfall. The panicked birds naturally flew back to their nests in the dry, thatched roofs of the city. Within moments, the entire settlement was incinerated in an inescapable, simultaneous firestorm. Section 5, Betrayal and State Retribution. We're shifting our lens to the modern era now, taking a strictly clinical, neutral view of a cycle where the state itself becomes the avenger. Let's examine the tragic sequence of events surrounding the 1972 Munich Olympics. The Palestinian militant group Black September took Israeli athletes hostage, which resulted in a terrible massacre right on the world stage. Now, the historical catalyst for this desperation and violence stemmed back to the 1948 establishment of Israel and the subsequent displacement of roughly 650,000 Palestinian refugees into camps. Following a highly public and botched rescue attempt in Munich, the geopolitical response was swift and ruthless. Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir and Major General Aharon Yariv initiated a covert anti-terrorist war. Here, the state fully absorbed the role of the avenger. Operation Wrath of God was launched. Now, this wasn't a traditional battlefield conflict. It was a cold, clinical elimination campaign. Secret Israeli assassination squads were deployed across Europe and the Middle East, systematically hunting down and executing individuals linked to Black September and the Munich attack. It was this sprawling, multi-year cycle of geopolitical retribution that operated almost entirely in the shadows. And finally, Section 6, the true cost of vengeance. We really have to look past the cinematic thrill of these stories to measure the devastating, unavoidable human consequences paid by both sides. 46. On March 20, 1703, 46 of the 47 Ronin were ordered by the shogun to commit ritual suicide. They succeeded in their revenge, they restored their master's honor to the absolute highest degree, and their reward was their own death. It is an incredibly stark numerical representation of the actual price of vengeance. Because, even the most successful Avengers are ultimately swallowed by the violent spirals they help create. Pied Picot, after destroying all his enemies with his limitless wealth, he was abducted and brutally murdered by a man named Aloot in a final desperate extortion attempt. Randolph McCoy outlived his generational feud? Sure, but at an unbearable cost. He lost 8 of his children to the violence and died an old man just mourning the absolute ruins of his family. So we close today's explainer with the exact question we started with, maybe evolved a bit by the shadows we've just explored. When the ashes of retribution finally settle, is it ever truly justice that remains, or simply the haunting echoes of shared destruction? Revenge might balance the scales of honor, but it almost always demands the soul of the Avenger in return. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive today. Keep questioning the history you read, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.